You know, and this is what it was called, libation ceremony of libations. You know, the ceremony spoke to the Yahudim in two specific ways. Firstly, it pointed towards natural rain. With the onset of the Feast of Tabernacles, the dry season of summer drew to a close, and the success of next year's crops depended on Israel receiving autumn or former rains, which increased through the winter and finished with the spring, latter rains. Okay? This libation or offering to Elohim was a prayer for rain, though the actual prayer seems to have been delayed until the 8th day. For so the Yahudim reasoned, and the Elohim answered and sent rain on the 7th day to ruin the festival. Now, as part of the commandment was, they had to dwell outside in temporary accommodations that was notably not weatherproof. So we know that if they were staying in sukkahs, and we've all been in the sukkah, and we know that it is not weatherproof. You know, so even while they were praying for rain, they didn't want it to rain right then. They wanted it to rain after the feast. Okay? But it also spoke to the Yahudim, as it speaks to us today, about the need for spiritual rain, and elevated the ceremony to a much more significant need for the people. It was seen by the rabbis as a foreshadowing of the fulfillment of Yoel 2:28, when Elohim will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. Where we read in Yoel 2:28 and 29, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. Now imagine this scene. While the water is pouring, you know, here it is, each day during the feast, they was doing this libation. But the seventh day, it was extra special. They went around the altar 7 times, you know, and instead of going around it once like the previous days, they would go around it 7 times, you know, and the libation offering was much greater. Now, just picture this in your mind. Here it is. You've been enjoying the feast, and you've been watching this all week, and now here it is. They're doing this is like the pinnacle of the feast. It really was. You know, this 7th day was the last day. Nothing should be mentioned. The Yahudim, they viewed the 8th day of Tabernacles as its own separate feast. They didn't view it as a part of the Tabernacles. They viewed it as something in and of itself. So when it speaks of the last day, speaking of the last day of Tabernacles, which would have been the 7th day, you know, and then the 8th day, they viewed that as being separate. So they looked at it as 7 and 1. Now, with this in mind, you pictured the 7th day is the pinnacle of the feast. This is when, you know, they really do it up, you know. And here it is, they're doing this water libation, you know, and they're pouring out all this water and wine and everything. And all of a sudden, Yahushua stands up and he says, "He that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water." And they're seeing all this water and wine being poured out, you know, and he's saying, "This is me." But this he spake of the Spirit that they that believe on him should receive. For the Ruach HaKodesh was not yet given, because that Yahushua was not yet glorified. Others said, "This is the Messiah," but some said, "Shall Messiah come out of Galilee?" They still having problems with stuff that they don't know, instead of just going and asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jory?
Well, I think we lose something sometimes in translation into English. When it says, out of him shall flow rivers of water, that word flow in Greek is rio, which literally means to gush forth.
Yeah.
And I was out west and I saw some lazy rivers flowing gently along, and that's not what it's picturing here. It's picturing something more like Old Faithful, gushing out.
Exactly, like that rock that was in the wilderness when Moshe hit it and the waters gushed forth.
Yes, yeah.
You know, And of course, Yahushua was that rock. You know, he is that rock.
Yes.
You know, and those rivers of water are gushing forth even nowadays. You know, but here it is during this ceremonies. You know, see, because if you don't know about that ceremony, then you know you're going to be kind of detached from this statement that he's making. But if you can picture this ceremony going on and all this water and being poured out, and all of a sudden he stands up and says, "He that believeth on me, as Scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water." You know, that was really, really profound. You know, really profound. You know, and of course, you know, others, you know, that already wasn't believing, but now this is the Messiah. You know, it's not no more ifs, ands, or buts. This is the Messiah. But some said, "Shall Messiah come out of Galilee?" Still got some naysayers. With these words, Yahushua was effectively saying that he was the fulfillment of this offering, meaning it is he alone who will give the Ruach HaKodesh. And notice, you know, in Yoel, this is in the narrative, Yah is speaking. Yah is speaking, and he's saying, "It shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh." This is Yah speaking. But look at what Messiah says. He said, out of his belly shall, he that believeth on me, as Scripture have said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Speaking of himself, you know, again, making himself to be Elohim. So the people, they would have picked up on that. Even though a lot of readers now today don't, but they would have picked up on that. You know, and this speaks to, what did I have down there? Oh, he was showing that it's he alone who could give them the Ruach HaKodesh. It's he alone who could give them that spiritual rain that they were praying for. You know, and this speaks to the people's reaction in Yochanan 7:40 and 41. You know, this is really the prophet. This is the Messiah. They was, you know, they know it now. They're starting to feel it in their heart. And they likely would have been thinking of passages such as Deuteronomy 18:15 through 18, which says, "Yahuwah thy Elohim will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren like unto me, unto him ye shall hearken, according to all that thou desirest of Yahuwah thy Elohim in Horeb in the day of assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of Yahuwah my Elohim, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. And Yahuwah said unto me, They have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him." What has Yahushua been saying all through the book of Yochanan? That he's only speaking his Father's words?
Yes.
You know, this is the type of stuff that would have been running through their mind, those that knew Scripture. And, you know, many of them did know because they were coming to Shabbat services every week, and they was hearing Torah read. Next reader, Yochanan 7:42 through 44, please.
Hath not the Scripture said, The Messiah cometh of the seed of David out of the town of Bethlehem, where David was? So there was a division among the people because of him, and some of them would have taken him, but no man laid hands on him.
Some of them would have taken him. Who are these some of them? Even the officers. Remember, the officers were sent out to go get him? But they didn't lay their hands on him. Why not? Well, it tells us in Yochanan 7:45 through 53. My next reader, please.
Then came the officers to the chief priests and Pharisees, and they said unto them, Why have ye not brought him? The officers answered, Never man spake like this man. Then answered him the Pharisees, Are ye also deceived? Have any of the rulers or of the Pharisees believed on him? But this people who kneweth not the law are cursed. Nicodemus said unto them, He that came to Yeshua by night, being one of them, doth our law judge any man before it hear him, and know what he doeth? They answered and said unto him, Art thou also of Galilee? Search and look, for out of Galilee ariseth no prophet. And every man went unto his own house.
Okay, so no man laid hands on them, but then they end up coming back. The officers went back to the chief priests and the Pharisees and said unto them, Why have ye not brought him? And the officers said, Never man spake like this. They were in awe. They were in awe. They were starting to believe themselves. That's why they didn't lay hand on them. You know, their response, Never man spake like this. Yes,
They
Jordan?
were also very ignorant of the scriptures because Jonah was from Galilee. 2 Kings 14, verse 25, also known as Gath-Hepher.
Yeah,
They're
Yeah.
very ignorant of the scriptures even today, the Jews.
absolutely. The officers then answered the Pharisees, Are ye also deceived?
No.
They're still sticking to their story.
Yeah.
You know, that, yeah, he doing these miracles, but they're only to deceive the people and lead them astray. Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed on him? Of course, they're the final authority. So if they haven't believed on him, then, you know,
Yes.
then you shouldn't be believing on him. Unknowingly, one of them did actually believe on him. And hence it's depicted here in verse 40 and 50. It says, Nicodemus saith unto them, He that came to Yahushua by night, being one of them. So letting you know who he is. Doeth our Torah, our law, judge any man before it hear him and know what he doeth? That was, you know, that was honorable. You know, he was trying to, you know, in his own little way, he was trying to stand up for the Messiah. They answered and said unto him, Art thou also of Galilee? We're going to throw you out too.
Yeah.
Search and look, for out of Galilee ariseth no prophet. You know, that's real bad, you know, but it's important to understand the governmental rule of that time. The Pharisees, you know, they didn't go by scripture, and unbeknownst to many, they still don't go by scripture.
Yeah.
You know, they still uphold the oral Torah over the written Torah. You know, and a lot of people don't, you know, they don't understand that. A lot of Messianic leaders don't understand that, not in totality. You know, that, you know, they actually put that over the written word. You know, and they have some really, really, really bizarre interpretations of scripture. I mean, like, you know, just super bizarre. But that's another subject for another time. That's all I have for you today. I pray it was a blessing to you.
Yeah. Hallelujah.